They're right in front again. Steiner does not want to be there. And Cactus Jack is up near the switch. Cactus Jack is up near the switch. There he is. They're ready. They're going to put Steiner in there.
Steiner's got to fight for his life. Oh, he belly to belly. He's got Abdullah in there. He belly to belly. What strength by Rick Steiner. He's trying to hook Abdullah. The crowd here going crazy in the opening moments of Halloween Havoc. Cactus Jack, he thinks Steiner's in there, but it's Abdullah. Cactus Jack thought it was Rick Steiner, but Abdullah. My gosh! Think about what he's experiencing.
He's getting cooked. And I think he's well done, guys.
What a wild matchup. The ring's even on fire. They use sticks, they use steel. A lot of blood was spilled, and Abdullah felt the power of the chair of torture.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winners of the Chamber of Horrors, the team of El Gigante, the Steiner Brothers, and Sting!
Now, Jim, apparently the big guy is still out.
Well, I have been around the sport probably more years than I like to comment on, but I have never, ever witnessed a cage match with the ferocity of that one. You had 8 men in there, and their objective was not to pin anyone, not even to make someone submit, to throw them over the top rope. I don't know the condition of Abdullah the Butcher, and I don't see anybody rushing to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, as a matter of fact. Maybe Cactus Jack could take that assignment, but it was the plan backfired because Cactus Jack thought that Rick Steiner was in the chair, Tony, but when he turned back around, Rick Steiner just belly-to-bellied Abdullah and set him down.
Now he's going to try to touch Abby to see how he is here. And unhook him now from the chair of torture. What a wild event this was.
Cactus Jack a little frantic. There, but he's opened his eyes.
Oh, he knocks him down.
Abdullah's a little, well, he obviously is a little deranged. My gosh, he's kicking anything that's around. And now the men that brought down the stretcher, every one of them getting beat up.
Well, I guess when he opened his eyes, he thought he was in heaven and he knew he shouldn't be there. And he's hitting everything that moves your right.
My gosh, what a situation here. The team of Sting, El Gigante, and the Steiner brothers have won it. He's even got his partner there. Oh, there's the results right there of the Chamber of Horrors steel cage matchup.
My name is the Commissioner, Sean Cunningham. On this installment of the History of Wrestling, it seems fitting as we reach the end of October to talk about Halloween. What is the connection between Halloween and wrestling? And I'm not talking about the SmackDown Halloween special that gave us John Cena and his rap gimmick that took him to stardom years and years ago back in 2004. One of the biggest things in wrestling was in WCW in the very late 80s and mostly through the entire decade of the 90s, called Halloween Havoc. Probably the third in the lineage of WCW pay-per-views in terms of longevity and importance behind Starrcade and the Great American Bash. And basically what Halloween Havoc would be, especially in its early years, they would do kind of weird gimmick matches or do something involving ghosts or goblins or something with a Turner Entertainment horror film budget that they might have had back in the day. The first one, the main event especially, dealt with an electrified cage match in Philadelphia. Ric Flair and Sting took on Terry Funk and the Great Muta, the J-Tex connection, along with Garrett. And to see an electrified cage match was something different. Again, just something to put in there for the sake of horror movies and Halloween and creepy things. And the theme would continue for a while. Even in 1990, you had Sting dealing with the Black Scorpion. And some fans remember the Black Scorpion, the digitized voice of Ole Anderson, ended up being Ric Flair. But I'm pretty sure the tease was meant to be the Ultimate Warrior. But what you continued to see was more odd things. The Chamber of Horrors match. 10 guys in a cage. White orderlies that were supposed to be ghosts. You had to beat them out, coming out of wooden coffins. And the object of this match was to get one of the opponents in an electric chair and flip the switch. This was deemed probably one of the worst matches in the history of World Championship Wrestling, as the switch itself would fall on its own and nothing would happen. But of course, the wonderful people at Turner on live pay-per-view, you saw the shot of the switch falling when nobody touched it. To the point that where there's now an infamous moment that we've seen numerous times on WWE Network and through history of Cactus Jack going up and resetting the switch, and then in turn causing his tag team partner at the time, Abdullah the Butcher, to be electrocuted, which you would think would be pretty shocking to fans and everything else. But it really wasn't, because it seemed like those fans really didn't care, because there was really no storyline behind the match. The 2 years of Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal, where they put 12 matches on a wheel, and two main event guys who were wrestling on spun the wheel, and that was the stipulation they had to deal with in the first year. They did an awesome job with this, film videos and vignettes with Sting and Jake the Snake Roberts. This led to what they called Spinner's Choice, and I believe the high point of this match actually came after the match, after Sting had defeated Jake, where a cobra that Jake was handling turned on him and bit him. And that was the big, shocking high point of the night with that. So, Halloween Havoc in the early years had a bit of infamy for being a little campy and a little weird. And it continued. In 93, you saw Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal again, this time with Cactus Jack and Vader. And they had what was a Texas death match. Thank God that was actually a wrestling match and nothing weird, except those two guys beat the crap out of each other until one of them couldn't get up, which was kind of neat, because it was an old school wrestling match that they had done at that time. As WCW changed in the mid-90s with Hulk Hogan and other older WWF main eventers coming into the territory, you had Flair and Hulk Hogan wrestle in a retirement match. Ric Flair ended up losing the match and retiring for what turned out to be, I think, 6 months. I know they brought it back in March of 1995. And also that was the beginning of rehashing a lot of Hulk Hogan's old stuff. I believe Mr. T wrestled Kevin Sullivan on that show as well. So just to add to the weird campiness of the legacy of Halloween Havoc. In 1995, they went to Detroit and they had the Giant, who was part of the Dungeon of Doom at the time, and they had implied that he was related to Andre. I believe that he was Andre the Giant's son at some point. But the feud with Hogan that had started in the summer and gone on, they did something where they had a sumo truck monster truck challenge on the top of Cobo Hall, where the entire object of this was to push the other truck off the roof of the building. They did this, which is probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And what had happened was the Giant fell, or at least that's what they wanted you to believe, off the side of Cobo Hall, and you didn't see him again until the main event. And he did come out for his match with Hulk Hogan and beat Hogan later that night to prove that the Giant is some kind of not necessarily human being, but mythical, superhuman alien person that can survive the fall off the top of a major arena and come back to fight 2 hours later. Strange stuff. Now, as we moved on, we got away from the Halloween creepiness outside of the set, which was fine. But Halloween Havoc really did things to start to become known for matches and things within the show, which was probably better. In 1996, that was the infamous ending where Hulk Hogan won his match against Randy Savage. And Roddy Piper came out and addressed Hogan and their legacy and everything that had gone down prior in WWF without mentioning WWF at the time. More hype for WCW at the time and more money. And that went on for a while too, over a couple of years. Some Starrcade matches, and even the next Halloween Havoc in 1997. And in 1997, Halloween Havoc was known for two things. The first thing being a match of the year candidate, a title versus mask match between Rey Mysterio Jr. and the late, great, awesome Eddie Guerrero. This thing, I can't even describe it. I just encourage everybody to go out of your way to see it, to go out of your way to find it. If you need to subscribe to any other source to find it, go see this match, because it's probably one of the greatest wrestling matches ever. And one of the only times that I remember seeing a masked wrestler wear a mask that was actually attached to their tights. There was actually a moment where Eddie Guerrero starts ripping at Rey Mysterio's mask, and you see a portion of his face because the mask has been ripped, but it's still connected to the suit, so that was something to behold for sure. The other thing he became known for was something that we jokingly called Age in a Cage. Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper in a cage to an inconclusive finish where Piper gets handcuffed to the cage and beaten down by Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. No, it's not 1987, it's 1997. And one of probably the other most unfortunate moments came in 1998. Most people have heard this story, but I'll reiterate because it's probably one of the most important moments in the downfall of WCW. In 1998, the show was booked around two main event matches. One being the return of The Warrior taking on Hulk Hogan in what was a mess of a feud and a mess of a match. The other being Diamond Dallas Page, who had won the right at the previous month's Fall Brawl pay-per-view to have a world title match against then champion, the undefeated Goldberg. The biggest key to this is when you do live television, whether it be TV or pay-per-view, things at times can run long, and you should always cut things when need be. When pay-per-view was at its apex, wrestling pay-per-views would go about 2 hours and 45 minutes and would have a 3-hour window in which to air. And then usually within 5 minutes after that, the pay-per-view feud would cut off if you had ever gone too terribly long. And what you had happen was the Diamond Dallas Page Goldberg match started with about 2 minutes to go. And then right at 11 p.m., the feed cut off to a lot of people. And a lot of people were very angry. And nobody really saw that match till the next night on Nitro. They aired it on free television because they really had no choice. And they lost millions upon millions of dollars issuing refunds to cable companies who in turn had to issue them to customers. And this was one of the things that really did lead to the downfall financially of WCW. And it's one of the things that unfortunately really tarnishes the legacy of Halloween Havoc from being one of the great pay-per-views in terms of lineage and history and great matches to being kind of this joke that most people only remember it for that one instance that it was the pay-per-view that went off the air early and you didn't get to see the world title match, your main event. And that's so unfortunate. The show did continue for 2 more years after that. What you had in 1999 was controversy around the world title, Hulk Hogan and Sting again, which led more importantly to the world title tournament that lasted the next month. But you also had a bloodbath between Sid Vicious and Goldberg, and that's probably what that 99 show was known for more so. And then in 2000, the final edition of Halloween Havoc, you had Scott Steiner and Booker T have a world title match. which was, it was okay. And then the other, I guess the biggest part of the legacy in Vegas was Eddie Guerrero, Conan, and Rey Mysterio as the Filthy Animals taking Ric Flair and burying in the middle of the Vegas desert. And that's kind of your legacy. The last 2 years really don't have a lot of stuff behind them, but I think the biggest part of the legacy that everybody thinks about is unfortunately that 1998 show. Like I said, it really does do damage to what was an interesting concept if they had continued with it. And once you got away from the campiness of the late 80s and early 90s, it actually turned into something that people look forward to. And it's one of those things that I would hope WWE would think about at some point, taking and building on the legacy as they tried to do, but unsuccessfully, with the Great American Bash. Hopefully they try something with Halloween Havoc and maybe somehow connecting it to Hell in the Cell and changing the name, because I think it would be really interesting to have the guts, especially with a network. Why couldn't you do a network special on Halloween, call it Halloween Havoc? But that's just an aside. But the legacy of that show likely comes down to campiness and unfortunately some mismanagement. But along all that, there really was some very strong wrestling. And I encourage people to go out and seek out some of these shows, because some of them, not all the way through, were ever very good, but some of them definitely had matches worth watching. My name is the Commissioner, Sean Cunningham. Sean Cunningham. Sean Cunningham. Sean Cunningham. Sean Cunningham.